Hi, Heather here from Creative Kiwi. Thanks for joining me and watching this video on how we make the In the Hoop bowl. Now I started off this design making it for the 4x4 hoop only. Once I'd actually made it, I realised I could actually make it with less hoopings for the bigger hoops. So we've got 5x7, 6x10 and a 9x9 design. And the only difference is it makes the same size bowl, the difference is the number of hoopings. So it really just depends on what size hoop you have. Now as you can see there, that's the sample I made in the 4x4 hoop and it's completely reversible. You do need to use matching bobbin thread obviously. Now that's before it's joined and that could actually be a placemat. So I just thought I'd show you that before I joined it. And you can see there the difference is you need to finish this on the sewing machine by just zigzagging those edges together, which you'll see later in the video. Now that particular design, I used mylar and gosh, it's beautiful. It looks really stunning. Very quick to make and very effective. So just to show up close, the design, you can see there you have an option of having a really nicely quilted front and then just the lines showing on the back, which just mainly to add strength to it. Now you can use a combination. That design, which I'm going to do in the video, I used the decorative stitch on 3 of the petals and just the lines on the other 3. And there we go, just showing how it can be reversible. It's really cute. You can do lots of things with it and you can do lots of fabrics. That design, that sample, I just did the lines. I didn't do any of the quilting, and it actually works better for probably for pretty fabrics. The detailed quilting stitch is probably mainly for mylar because you do need a much closer stitch than just the lines. I hope you can see there just how stunning it is with the mylar and that quilting stitch. It's really pretty. And I did that one so that the quilting showed on the back as well. Really, really easy. So all the actual detail about this design is in the step-by-step instructions that are included in the download file. This video shows the 5x7 size and it shows how you join three hoopings for that particular one, but the different sizes you just join the same. It's the same techniques, but I just didn't want to bore you with 4 different videos. But all the detail is in the download file, including cutting sizes for your material. But it's pretty simple. Basically you just need 5x5 pieces of fabric for each petal if you're going to do different colours, or if you're going to do one colour you're just going to need a piece of fabric as large as your hoop, or just slightly larger than your hoop. We use a palin or a fusible fleece as the batting, and you just need a front and a back. But as I say, this is all in the instructions that are included in your download file. For this style of design, we do use 2 layers of the water-soluble stabilizer, and it's the fabric type that you can see here in the video, not the plastic solvy type topping. So it's 2 layers of the fabric type, and we do this so that we can remove all traces of the stabilizer from the edges. And you can see there that we use the pinning method just to ensure there is no movement in the hoop. Now I've shown the 5x7 hoop here being hooped up, but actually when you start you're going to do the centre first, and you can do that in a 4x4 hoop. So what you do is you just do the first colour, which is a placement line, onto your stabiliser, and then you can see there we're going to put a piece of batting or fusible fleece over that placement line and just stitch that down. Now all the segments or sections are all made along the same lines, so you do the same thing. As you can see here, we're just going to cut away the excess batting from the edges. It just seems to be easier to do it now, and it keeps the seams, or it takes the bulk out of the seams. So you cut away that excess batting, then you place your piece of fabric over the guideline, and I'm sure I'm going to show here, you can tape it down if you prefer. There you go. And then take it back to the machine, where again it's just going to stitch that outline again just to attach the front. Now in your design file, this is where you can do that pretty quilting stitch. I haven't done it for this particular sample. I'm just showing there that you could do that, but because I had the pretty fabric I just didn't need to put the extra quilting on it. We're going to add the backing. So you remove the hoop from the machine, and as you can see, the backing goes on with the wrong side towards the hoop. So it's hard to see in that white fabric, that's why I showed the pattern fabric. Then you take it back to your machine, and it's just going to do the line quilting. And as I say, I suggest you do this. It gives the bowl some strength. So you've got if you don't want to have the quilting showing, you can always use the monofilament or clear thread, and that way you won't actually see it on the bowl itself. Now that's the centre done. Very quick, very simple. Now you use the centre for the 4x4 hoop size and the 5x7. The other two sizes, it's actually all included in a file. You can see there I'm just cutting away the edges as close as I can to the stitch line. This is where you're going to join the other petals. So there's your front and your back. Now we do the same for, I'm calling them petals, the next section, and you can see I have got the 5x7 hoop there, so this is where we get to. And again, it's just going to stitch the placement line, so you've got the outline of the design. You're going to add your piece of batting or fleece and stitch that. And again, you're just going to remove that hoop from the machine, and you're just going to cut away that excess batting. If you're doing the larger hoop sizes, the 6x10 or the 9x9, you follow the same techniques. You're going to just, obviously for the 6x10, you actually have, I think, 4 petals in the one hooping. But it's the same idea. You'll see it in the instructions. Now, I've got 2 versions of the design. If you were just going to do one fabric, then you'd use the one fabric files and obviously just place one piece of fabric over the petals. I'm showing how you do the 2 separate colours. So there's just the 2 smaller pieces, and I'm just visually centering that there over the guideline. And just taping in place. Then we take it back to the machine, which just stitches around that one segment just to attach the fabric. And here you just cut away that excess just on that side there where the next heart is, and it's just to stop the fabric being caught in your next placement. And you can see there I've just got the plain fabric on this one, taped it in, and again that's just going to tape it down. And again, if you were doing just the one fabric version, you're just going to put the one piece of fabric over the top and stitch it down in one go. And I'm just cutting away that excess just at the side there, just so it doesn't get caught in anything. Now the next step is where you can choose with your quilting. So I think I showed at the beginning, for this particular sample, on the plain fabric, I did do the detailed quilting. Just because it was just plain fabric and I thought it would look pretty. For the piece of pretty fabric, I didn't bother. I just skipped that colour, just so there was just no need to put the pretty quilting on that one. Same thing, if you were going to put some wording on these, you would do it at this point before we add the backing. So now we're going to add the backing, and it is just one piece for this. I didn't bother doing the 2 separate colours or separate fabrics. So there, and it's the right side showing up towards you, or the wrong side of the fabric towards the hoop, because this is what you're going to see on the back. And you guessed it, back into the hoop, and it's just going to stitch around a couple of times to give you a nice cutting edge, and also just stitch those quilted lines that I talked about. That just helps for keeping the bowl stable. And again, I'll just say, if you don't want the lines to show on your bowl, you could just use the clear or monofilament thread. If you really don't want the lines showing, then just use colour 1 to add your backing, and there'll just be the outline only. I just think it does make the back of the bowl look quite nice. Anyway, here we go. We've done that, and we've just removed the hoop from the machine, and we're going to cut away the excess fabric on the front and the back of the design. I'm using my echidna scissors here. They're my favourites. I go between using them and just normal dressmaking scissors. I think the main thing is to have sharp scissors. Duckbill scissors, that's what they're called. I just had a blank. I couldn't think what they were called. So what we've done here, I'm calling them petals. This segment, you're actually just going to repeat this 2 more times. We're nearly to the join, but you do use the same file. So when you're doing the 5x7, you just have a centre and this one set of petals. Now I just showed there I changed the thread so that I've got the matching bobbin thread in the machine at this point, because this is going to show on the front and the back. And what we're doing here is just a zigzag stitch, which is just zigzagging the edges, and it's just going to stop your machine where you do the first join. So there we go. So there's the back. And we turn it to the front, and this is where you're going to match up. Now this is where you can use the lines on the designs. They should match up, because I think you can see there in the video there's actually little gaps at the sides and the edges. So don't think your petal's going to match exactly to the centre, because it's not. So match up your centre line there, and just tape that in place out of the stitching line, and you can see matching that centre line there. Like I say, you'll have little gaps, but that's what it's meant to do. So don't think you've got different wrong file size or anything. It is correct. There are just small gaps. Take that back to your machine, and this is where we do the actual join. So you can either slow your machine down or stop and start the machine as you like. But basically this is just doing a zigzag stitch that's going to join the 2 pieces of fabric, 2 pieces of the design. So once it's done that join, just have a quick look. I'm sure I'm going to show it here. I am. Just make sure that that zigzag has got caught both pieces of fabric in there. If it hasn't, you're going to have to undo it and redo again, because you do need it to have both pieces of fabric joined at that stage. And once you're happy with that, you just stitch the last stitch, which is just going to stitch round, and it's going to do that decorative stitch there for you, and that will be the end of this. And as I say, I haven't bored you with you watching the whole thing stitch out, but it does stitch around, and just with that one colour. So that's it, that's your first segment made. So what we do here is just obviously remove the hoop from the machine, and then we're just going to cut away that excess stabiliser just close to the edges. You'll remove the bulk of it or the rest of it once you finish the design. And you're just going to do that 2 times more. So you've got this, you'll have the same file loaded, and you'll just redo those steps that I've just done. See, same file. So what I've done, I've just shown there, it's exactly the same as before. I'm just going to show the second joining. And you're doing the same thing. You're just lining up those centres. And as I say, there'll be a gap on some of the sides, not as much on that left-hand side there, because you've already got the satin stitch. But just tape in place, and I tape in outside the stitch line. I don't like stitching on tape. That's personal preference. Just, you know, whatever, if you prefer it, that's fine. You can add an extra bit of tape in the middle there. I just don't like the gluey stuff on my needles. And there we're matching the second stitch line, or the centre line. off to your machine, and remembering you'll have your different bobbin thread in there anyway. And it's the same as before, the exact same joining stitch. Again, check it's just caught both sides of the fabric. And when you're happy, press the button, and then that last colour will do all that stitching around all the edges for you. And that's part 2 done. Same thing, just remove that excess stabiliser around the edges. You can see there, I hope they're pretty, that decorative stitches. I mean, it does take longer. Obviously, there's more stitches if you do that pretty stitch, and it isn't really needed on pretty fabric, but it's up to you. Again, use the same file and you follow exactly the same steps as before until you get to that joining stitch. And I'll just show you again. Now you've got that third piece. And as I say, just doing exactly as before, match up those two centres. As I say, there's less gap at those two sides because we've got the satin stitch filling it up. But there's still a gap there in that middle. Back to your machine. And we do that joining stitch again. Now for the 4x4 hoop, you do have exactly the same, but you've got must be 7 hoops, six joins, but it's the same thing. It's just going to join along that inner edge. It's all in the instructions, but you know, it's the same techniques are used. Now with the 6x10 hoop, you can do this in 2 hoopings, and the centre and 4 of the petals in one, and then just the last or the second hoop is just for the 2 petals. So it's quite quick. And as I say, I've got the 9x9, which is super quick if you do have a 9x9 hoop. So there you go, that's finished. Now you remove the water-soluble stabiliser as before, and I'm just showing here how you get rid of all the water-soluble stabiliser, which is just with hot water and a Q-tip. And do this, if you're making the bowl, obviously, do this before you join it, just so that you haven't got any stabiliser in when you're sewing it on the sewing machine. As I say, you could leave that just as a wee coaster placemat type thing if you prefer. But joining it actually looks more complicated than it is to do those joins. So it's just a zigzag stitch. And it's not, your bowl is not that stiff that you have to really play with it. There is a wee bit of, I guess, manipulation, but you really are just joining. Now, after doing a few of them, I've worked out what the secret is. So I'm not sure if I show it here. Might show it on the next one. As I put the needle down on I have a zigzag stitch. Now I have it on a width of 4 and a length of 2. You put the needle down and then you sort of just feel the 2 sides together. And it does kind of go up at the back, but that's fine, just as long as the wee bit that you're stitching stays as straight as you can get it. And that's real time there. You can see me doing that. And so it looks more complicated than it is. And all I'm doing is I'm using that same matching bobbin thread and cotton in my machine. See? And you just join them together. And so it looks more complicated than it is. And so I think the key is just getting one side of that needle down, and then you just kind of feel the way it goes in together straight. And I am just doing a wee bit of a back stitch there to tack it down, then stitching through and then another back stitch. And I say this is real time here. I haven't sped up the video or anything, so it really doesn't take long. Oh, worth doing, because I think it looks quite whizzy that you've made it on an embroidery machine. So I think I've got some pictures. What I've actually made the bowl for initially was for my young girl Ruby. She's into crystals. She loves her crystals. So I looked at the mile and I always thought I must make something for her crystals, because she likes to put her crystals in natural products, like wooden bowls or fabric bowls. So I did think that's exactly why I made it in Myla for her, because I thought it would go really pretty for her crystals. So I think I've got a photo here later of her with, I think, a candle in it, actually, candle and crystals. But I've also, it's going next to my sewing machine to put in my bobbins. You could put jewelry in, you could put anything in it. I mean, coming up to Easter, you could put Easter eggs in it, like lovely little containers, a wee gift basket. We haven't got any chocolate in the house yet. I'm trying to hold off as long as I can for that. But yeah, it would be nice as a wee gift bowl with something, little in it. So you can see the bowl goes up sort of at the back more and more as you get closer to having it completely closed. But as I say, I think the key is as long as you have your, put your needle down on one side of the bowl and then your foot down, and that, yeah, as long as the bit in front of you is straight. Just take a wee bit of manoeuvring, but as I say, not looks harder than it is. That's it. There's your little bowl. Very, very cute. Now, I just thought I'd show, for those of you with a 6x10 hoop, you can see you make the first portion exactly the same way in the 6x10 hoop. Then you can actually do the last bit in a 5x7 exactly how we did in the previous video. So you've just got the two hoopings and plus the one joining. But I did think I'd just show you the join for the 6x10 hoops. So exactly the same as we did before, but harder to see with the darker fabric, I'm sorry. But you're matching the centre line on either side or on either heart. And there we go, off to the machine, and the same as before. In fact, it is exactly the same join as before. It's just the two segments. And so if you've got a 9x9 hoop, you can do this all in one complete hooping. Now I think we go back to the machine, and we're at the machine, and we're all happy with that, and we just do that final stitch again. So here's a couple of the completed samples. The Mylar one with the crystals, Ruby's crystals. I've got the blue gold one that just shows you could use it as a jewelry holder. Or what have I got there? My plain white one, really handy for bobbins. I'm sure everyone will have a use for that. Or just the plain one there. I'm sure you'll find lots of uses for the wee bowls, and I can't wait to see what you make. Make sure you join our Facebook group. That way you can share the photos that you do make. And believe me, the inspiration I get from the group every day is amazing. We put out a simple design like this, and you guys make some really amazing things out of it. So please join the group so you can share in that. Thanks a lot. Bye.